part one, I outlined what seems to me to be the prevailing view on what sets us as humans apart from other animals, specifically non-human primates, in a biological sense. And in this video, I want to give my thoughts on the implications of those differences. So the fact that we are different requires an explanation. So we are given a how, and we need to figure out a why. And I just want to give my thoughts on that. And I also want to discuss how my newfound, albeit limited, understanding of what sets us apart from other animals has bolstered my faith in Jesus Christ. I won't expand on this idea until a later video, so look out for that. The first possible conclusion that I want to discuss is that these differences simply evolved entirely from a materialistic point of view. So the extreme differences in cognitive ability and intelligence that we see in humans, the vast superiority of our cognition, is simply derived from natural selection and other aspects of Darwinian evolution. So there are many possible theories as to why it happened to be humans that evolved these abilities. One being something called the savanna hypothesis, which is based on the impacts of climate change. So humans emigrated from more humid to drier climates, and this favored bipedalism because there are many advantages to this mode of walking. So it allowed for less surface area exposed to the sun, less of your body was in contact or close to the ground, so it allowed for better airflow. You were able to see over tall grasses, which is the type of vegetation that would have been present in these drier climes, and many more advantages have been proposed. So the shift to bipedalism freed up our hands to be able to use tools, so it had a knock-on effect in enabling us to use our hands to make tools, which is widely regarded as one of the first actions that required a higher cognitive ability. Then the humans that had the higher cognitive ability could make tools, and then they had a biological advantage, and so natural selection did its job, and the people with the higher cognition survived and reproduced, and etc., etc. So that would be one hypothesis which attempts to explain why humans have evolved more substantial prefrontal cortices. Another idea is that we had a pre-existing brain structure which had no significant advantage, or it didn't contribute to our survival in an earlier time. Say, if you take the example of the savanna hypothesis, when we were quadrupedal, the ability to use tools wouldn't have been available to us, so our cognitive superiorities wouldn't have resulted in a survival advantage. But once we changed our environment and were able to use our hands, the cognitive abilities that were pre-existing now posed a great advantage to survival, and were a highly adaptive structure. Or it could have been some other environmental factor that resulted in this pre-existing structure, the prefrontal cortex, which was already highly developed in humans but didn't provide an advantage. Then in this new environment it did provide an advantage. There are many more explanations given in a variety of reviews and articles. For example, one published in 2022, I'll link it below, emphasizes the synergistic abilities of the human brain. So by synergistic, I mean that we can integrate the abilities of distant neural networks, which allow us to do more complex actions and think more abstractly, whereas non-human primates don't have the ability to integrate a variety of complex neural networks into a higher unity to act towards a higher goal. They can only utilize their different neural networks in isolation. Like, for example, if we only had one eye, we'd still be able to see, but it's the combination of two eyes that allows us to seek depth and have a greater vision. But these abilities wouldn't be available to us if we couldn't integrate the two eyes together. So that's the same idea with neural networks in the brain. There are many other explanations too, so this just evolved over a very long time span. There is nothing special about intelligence, it's just another method that humans by chance have used to survive and reproduce. There's so many explanations, these are the ones that I've found. Also, just as an aside, I want to give full credit to all of the scientific papers and reviews that I've linked below. I take no credit for any of the ideas I've spoken about thus far. The more scientific conclusions that would have arrived from research and studies. I particularly want to emphasize the utility of Richard Levy's The Prefrontal Cortex from Monkey to Man and in my investigation of this topic. Now, this all makes perfect sense to me, and I see it as perfectly legitimate. I even see it as true, because they seem to be rigorous studies that have been done, and I respect the scientific method, and I think that everything that I've discussed so far has played a role in setting humans apart from other animals. However, none of these explanations are fundamentally explanations. They don't explain anything, they simply push the question of why further down the line. So, why did humans develop a prefrontal cortex instead of other animals? Or why did humans move to drier climes rather than other non-human primates? Or why humans? Just why humans in general? Why did humans develop these synergistic abilities in their prefrontal cortex and non-human primates did not? Why are we the only species that have the vast cognitive superiorities that we have? These are questions that perhaps interest me more, rather than just stopping somewhere. You know, do we just stop somewhere and conclude that, oh yes, this happened by chance? And how do we decide that event? Stopping somewhere would simply be deciding that there is nothing more than a how. It doesn't address the question of why, it just denies its existence. Doing so suggests that there is no implication, that, and this is what this video is about, trying to discern what the implication of these differences might be. And I'm not wanting to deny their existence. I think there is an implication. I think there is a why in this issue. The vast difference and superiority in cultural, technological, and societal development that we see could not have just happened by chance, the same way that the universe couldn't have just come into being by chance. I study physics at university, and I have an enormous respect for science and the scientific method, of course, and I'm in no position to be critical or to even give an opinion on these findings in research. But what I am saying is that attempting to answer a why question scientifically doesn't work. You could even say that you need to presuppose an answer to the why question before you even attempt to do science at all. Something I mentioned in part 1 of this 2-part series on whether or not humans are truly set apart from animals was whether or not we are created in the image of God. And believing that we are was something that dramatically changed my life for the better. And therefore, my goal with this 2-part series was, first of all, to outline the biological and neurological distinctions between us, humans, and non-humans, specifically non-human primates. Secondly, and more importantly, it was to show that evolution does not and cannot provide an explanation for why we are here. I want to offer my perspective as a student of physics on whether or not evolution negates the idea of God. And I think the reason I want to do this is because it can be a major stumbling block for a lot of people due to a belief in the incompatibility of science and religion and the desacralization of existence that evolution can sometimes cause you to believe in. Like, you can see evolution as something that materializes the progression of humanity, and it's possible that it does materialize our progression and desacralize our existence in some manner. But I do believe that a complete rejection of God founded on this belief is a misunderstanding of the symbolic and metaphorical nature of the Bible. So I don't believe that evolution negates God, not in the least. The basis of science is that the universe has a predetermined structure, that it is intelligible, and that requires the idea of a creator. We have to figure out a fixed physical reality, say the laws of physics, that we cannot change for ourselves. Yes, the Bible states in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 that on the 6th day God created man and that Adam was formed from the dust of the earth. Now, this doesn't contradict evolution in my eyes. Like I said, the interpretations of the Bible do not have to be purely historic. They can be symbolic, metaphorical, and can have a variety of different meanings. No matter how many discoveries we make about evolution, God could have designed it that way. God could have created a universe where we evolved from a common ancestor with chimpanzees. So with that said, my hope is that someone out there might reconsider whether or not evolution truly negates the idea of God. Now, I'm not saying that the points that I have laid out in this video in any way could reconcile anyone to God, and nor is that my intention. I'm not intending to convert anyone to theism. My intention is just to offer up ideas so that others might be aware of them, because there may be people out there who haven't considered these ideas. I stated at the beginning of this video that the lessons that I have learned in pursuing this knowledge have brought me to a deeper faith in Jesus Christ, and the reason for that is these ideas, the idea that humans are set apart from other animals and that there is biological evidence in our brain structures for this, has facilitated an increase in my beliefs. It has made me believe that we are created in the image of God, because whilst defining the differences, evolution and biology cannot explain the evidence, and there's no contradiction with the evidence to the idea of God. no explanation is provided. There is no explanation, and we must have faith in something if we want to take action, if we want to look at the world, if we want to do, we must perceive. We must have a assumption in place in order for us to act and carry out a specific plan. It's like what I mentioned with science. If you wish to do science, there must be an assumption of the answer to the why question made beforehand. Like I said at the start of the video, I'll expand on this idea of believing that we are created in the image of God in my next video, and why I chose to have faith in Christ over all else. Why I chose to have faith in life over death, I suppose. If you're interested in hearing my story on that, please look out for that video. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. I hope that the ideas that I have offered up in this video might have aided in your development and possibly caused you to reconsider whether or not evolution contradicts God. So again, thanks for watching, and God bless.